Hey everyone, this is Brian at F Studios, and this is another edition of Inside the Studio. Hey everyone, this is Brian at F Studios, and on this edition of Inside the Studio, I'm gonna hopefully show you how I took this and turned it into this. Alright, so what I'm going to do is show you guys, or hopefully just kind of do a run through of how I've mixed the previous track, the little demonstration that I just gave you guys earlier. I'm more focused here on just showing you guys what's going on the mixer board as opposed to seeing me and everything else what's going on. But this video is not to showcase strictly this mixer, the AW4416. Everything we're going to do here is going to apply basically to any kind of setup out there, whether it's modern DAWs or analog systems. So it's going to be somewhat generalized, and I'm not going to show a lot of close-up detail what's going on here. You guys are just going to get to hear what I say I'm doing, and of course you get to hear the audio, the changes and the differences of what's going on there. But anyway, to give you a bit of background of what's going on, I had a client coming in recently. It's an on and off kind of thing here, where he's just been wanting to record some of his music. He's not really interested yet in having any of this stuff as a demo or putting it together for an actual commercial product. He's been in bands for a long time, for much of his life, and he's been on various levels of in the music industry as far as career-wise goes. And right now he's just on his own, just enjoying life, doing his own thing, and working a regular job, and just fiddling around with music as a hobby still. But he's got all these songs that he's never had produced, never had performed live, that he wants to get down onto a physical medium to just be able to play and listen to and say, you know, I created this. This is my music here that we never got a chance to do anywhere else. So he came here to the studio to do that, and since it was just a setup where we're not really making a demo, we're not making a commercial CD, he just wanted to track things really quick, and just so that they were good enough to pass his level of scrutiny, but not polished up so much that they would be something to consider for an actual commercial record yet. Maybe in the future he might plan on doing that, but right now this is just for him to see what the tracks sound like. So what we did is he came in and we recorded live his guitar track and my drums. We'd run through the song 2, maybe 3 times so I can kind of get an idea how it plays, and then we just went for it, just recorded it. And you know, it could, in my opinion, it could have been worked on a little more to polish up the performance better, but that's, like I said, that's not what he was really going for. He just wanted to get this stuff down. And after we did that, he did his vocal tracks, and then we did the bass lines and some other stuff he wanted to add. And now we're to the point to where it's actually time to start getting it ready for mixing, or to get it mixed and get it to a point to where he can listen to it and say, yay or nay, and let's do some other stuff with it. He still has some things he wants to come in with, like lead guitar and whatnot, but that can come in and be put in the system at any time. We can already get started on the root music that's here to get it sounding the way he wants it to. And really his only request is that he wants it to sound really good. He wanted killer drum sound. He wanted a good, solid mix where everything is blended well together. But one other thing he requested is that he wanted stereo guitars. And I don't know why he chose not to record stereo guitar tracks, 2 different tracks. He didn't. So it's up to me to actually make his single mono track sound stereo. And that's a pretty easy thing to do in today's day. I mean, it's been being done for decades. It's fake, but it still provides the same kind of effect. With the digital system, it's going to be really easy to do. With an analog system, like on a tape, you're going to have to run it through an effects processor to start with, unless you already have a mixer that's set up to handle this kind of job. And all we're really going to do is we're going to duplicate the track. We're just going to double track it. So here, what I'm about to play now, this should be the actual guitar track that we have. Let's see if we can get things started back from the beginning here just to hear it. There it is. You can kind of hear the drums way in the background because, like I said, this was a live take. We separated things out, but there's still going to be some amount of bleed there, no matter how far we separate out within the studio. Plus, I play pretty loud, so my drums can carry. Alright, so we're going to duplicate this track, and that's just going to be a copy and paste situation. And I've already got it set up on track 12, I think it is. Let's pull down track 7 and listen to 12. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so if we take those two tracks and lock them together, we're going to pan them hard left and hard right. And since they're not side by side on my system, I'm just going to group them under the fader settings. There we go. And now let's go ahead and turn them up. It still sounds deadpan mono. It's still deadpan mono. So obviously, because it's the same phasing and everything within how the waveform is shown, if you were to see it visually, is right in line on each track. So yes, it's going to be mono sounding. So at this point, we are going to go ahead and offset one of the tracks. Just a hair. That way, it starts to give us that separation in the sound field. Let's go ahead and try that out. Well, that widened it out quite a bit. From my perspective, listening through the headphones right now, that took the sound field from deadpan mono and spread it out about this far. So we're looking out past 90 degrees, maybe closer to 110, 120 degrees. But it worked. It worked pretty well. But I'm not going to end that there. I want to know what it's going to sound like if I start messing with the phase as well. So I'm going to jump to the other channel, and I'm going to just change the phase on it. Sounds a little wider without doing anything to the phase. If I just leave the phase alone, it seems to be the widest sounding setup. But I'm going to turn the phase back on, or switch the phase again, and I'm just going to continue messing with the offset and see what that does. Alright, getting to the point to where it sounds like it might be delayed a little bit. It still didn't sound quite as wide as it did with the phase all set to normal on both channels. But for now, I'm just going to leave it alone. I think we're at a good point right there. And let's see. I think right now I'm just going to bring in the bass guitar and see what that sounds like. Let's go ahead and drop those back down and just listen for the bass. All right, now the bass was just plugged directly into the mixing board, and we used the onboard effects for a generic amp and cab setup that the client was actually liked the sound of. And then we just modified a little of the settings to change things around a little more. And he liked how it sounded within the mix, just the rough mix that we had with just his guitars and the drums going on. But I think for the purpose of what we're doing here, I'm going to actually experiment more with the EQ. But the cabinet simulator may actually roll off the low end, so I'm not sure how much low end we're going to get out of this. We may have to play around with some things. Let's take a listen. Okay, boosting the low end up, we did get a little bit more bass out of it, but it still just has that sound of a kind of a low mid bass guitar. It doesn't really have the deep low end that the bass I use has, but it's a different setup. It's probably a lighter bass with different pickups, and that's just the way it is. He likes the way it sounds, so we're gonna just kind of work with what we got and leave it at that. So let's go ahead and bring the guitar levels up with the bass just to see what it's going to sound like. Well, okay, it's not bad so far. It's a start. As you can hear, there's not a lot of distortion on those guitars. It's more of an overdrive. And, that's the sound he's wanting. And it kind of reminds me of early 70s stuff, early 70s sounds, not super heavy distortion. So the guitars are not really the driving factor for mixing this song at all. I'm seeing the approach to this as being more like what I heard from music from the early 70s, maybe and later on, where it was more driven by the bass, the vocals, and the drums, with the guitars just filling in the background. That being said, though, I want to make the guitars stand out a little bit more. They seem pretty mellow. I'd like to make them a little crunchier. And I think I want to get rid of some of the low end on them, just to leave that frequency range for the bass guitar. So let's see what's going to happen. I'm going to put a high pass filter on the guitars, and I'm just going to see what it's going to do, how far we can go before it really starts affecting the sound of the guitars and making them sound kind of like crap. So I'll turn off one side and just focus on a single channel here. Let's see. Go to EQ, and we're going to place a high pass filter on this. Bring it back to the beginning. I'm going to turn the bass off too. We're just going to listen to the guitar itself. Go ahead and pan it back to center for now. Yeah, that's way too much there, and that's only bringing up the filter to this 500 hertz range. So at this time, I'm thinking I like the way it is with setting the filter up at about 157 hertz. So I'm going to do that to the other side as well. We're not really changing it a lot, but hey, it may be enough. Who knows? So let's turn the other one back on and just have a listen now to both of them. Let's go ahead and bring the bass guitar back in. Alright, well, I still want to try to get a little more crunch out of the guitar, so I'm going to try just using a compressor. We're going to squeeze down that waveform a bit and see what it does. And I'm just going to make it a limiter. I'm not even going to bother with trying to get really fine detail with the compressor. We're just going to start out as a limiter and see what happens. Quick attack. We're setting everything as fast as possible right now. Going to bring the threshold back up to 0, and we're just going to start dropping it down, seeing what it does to the sound. Bring that back up. Let's test this out. This is no compressor. That's with the compressor. No compressor, and now with the compressor. Well, it doesn't make a big change for what I did, but I do like I do like it. I think it made it sound a little bit dirtier, which ultimately that's what I'm going for. So I'm going to duplicate those settings onto the other channel. And we're going to just turn that on and take a listen. Turn the bass on. Let's take it back to the beginning because this is about the end of the track. I'd still, at this point, I want to brighten those guitars up. So we're going to be looking in the frequency range between 4 kilohertz, maybe 8 kilohertz, just depending on what kind of sound I think sounds best out of them at the moment. So let's go ahead and get that started. And then at this point, I'm going to leave the bass playing with it. We're just going to set it up all together. Okay, that's set up at about 4 kilohertz with a Q of only 0.7, boosting up about 8 dB on the gain. And that brings them out a little bit more. It makes them stand out, but I don't know if I really want to leave them right there. Let's go ahead and sweep it up the scale a bit and see what happens. Okay, I'm actually liking that. All we did is we just moved up the frequency center to 8 kilohertz instead of being 4 kilohertz. And it brought out the harmonics more. I really like the sound with those harmonics coming through better. Again, more and more it's reminding me of that old school sound. And of course the client, he's coming in and he's saying this kind of music that he plays is like it's old 70s blues styled rock music. He says the kind of music you could probably expect to hear if you were in an old biker bar. So we're going for that sound overall. And I think we're starting to capture something that represents that or resembles that. And right now I'm going to focus back over on the bass guitar. And I'm going to put a low pass filter on this. And I'm going to get rid of everything else in the frequency range that we really aren't hearing. So I'm going to play everything we have so far. The 2 tracks of the guitars and how they're set up with EQ and compression, and the bass with its EQ. And I'm going to hit this low pass filter and just pull it down until the bass starts losing what I think it needs, and then kind of back it out a little bit so it has what it needs, and yet we get rid of all the other unnecessary frequencies going up from there. All right, so what we did is I put a low pass filter on it and ran it all the way down to 3.56 kilohertz. And I think for now that sounds pretty good. So right now I'm gonna pull those tracks down and I'm gonna focus on the drums. Now my client said he wanted some great sounding drums, and I like that because I'm somebody who's probably one of the few left at the level that I work at with clients who actually records and mixes real drums and makes them sound pretty damn good, if not great. No MIDI replacement, none of that other stuff here. So we're going to focus on that right now. Now, a lot of people say they have trouble mixing drums, but that's because the drums are a very dynamic instrument with, a very broad frequency range to work with. I mean, there's just so much you can do. I'm using the same kit that I've used on all my recordings for my own personal stuff. I haven't changed the heads. I haven't changed the tuning. I haven't changed sticks. I have not changed really like my playing style. But I make the drums sound different for each style of song that I've been recording, simply through the use of dynamics processing and EQ. Now, there's certain things that are pretty obvious that they're the same, such as the toms. They have their own resonance frequencies that, unless I retune them to something else with a different head, they're not going to sound any different. It's always going to be the same tonal progression from high to low. But I make the snare sound different, and I make the kick sound different. For this track, I'm going to keep things sounding fairly natural. At least that's my goal. But the way we set things up, my client wanted to have a muted snare or a dampened snare. That in itself is going to add some low end to the signal when it's recorded. Plus, we're close mic'd, so that's going to give us the proximity effect. That's going to be adding more low end to our signal, just because of how the mics are designed. These unidirectional microphones, I guess, are known to having the proximity effect. But that's how we get the separation. We're not running in a room with a bunch of isolation sections. Not a lot of isolation rooms or fiberglass walls in front of the drums for isolation. So we get rid of that problem by close miking and using directional microphones. So they have their ups and downs, and you just have to learn to deal with it. Other issues is mixing the drums, whether they're gated or if you're not going to gate them. I'm not going to gate them at this time, so we have to mix so that the whole drum kit sounds good with all the bleed that may come through all the other microphones and how those individual channels are EQ'd and compressed. But right now, I'm going to focus on the snare drum. I'm just going to try to get a nice, natural sound from what it is. I'm not going to try to tweak it too much. We're going to listen to what it is, and I'm just going to try to clean it up a little bit, and that's that. I'm not going to really mess with it anymore unless the client says, well, he wants a tighter, poppier sound. Then I'll make it a tighter, poppier sound. But right now, we're just going to clean it up so it sounds good as is. So let's take a listen. I think it's on track 3, channel 3. Yeah, that's channel 3. All right, so I'm listening to it and I'm thinking, I kind of want to get rid of a little bit of that boxy resonance. But we'll just play with it. It's going to be on the lower mid-range frequencies. We'll just pull those down a little bit for now. Alright, just listening to what I did there. I just pulled out 4.5 dB from about 600 hertz, and I think just through what I'm listening through, my headphones here, I think that's made it sound quite a bit better, but I want to bring back some of those higher frequencies too. It's not like what we would hear from the spring registers, or the springs underneath, and just the attack of the stick hitting the head. I want to see if I can just bring that out. And I think I'm going to just do that with a high shelving EQ and bring it down. Alright, that worked out a little bit. Pulled it down to about 4.5 kilohertz. With a 7.5 dB boost. Now just for shits and giggles, I'm going to bring in the overheads and see what they're going to sound like. And I'm going to go ahead and set them up in their stereo pair and just start increasing the volume. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and hit the overheads with a high-pass filter. We'll wait past this point. I want to get the cymbals back or the hi-hats or something. I want to get some kind of setup in those. Because what I want to do is hit a high-pass filter and cut out all the lower frequencies I can that without affecting the sound of the cymbals. Okay, I think right there 420 hertz is a good spot, at least for now to start with. So let's go ahead and turn those off. I'm going to leave the snare running. I'm going to add some compression to the snare. Right now, I'm going to just start off with a hard limiter. And I'll be having to set this track back to the beginning because we're getting close to the end here. Hard limiter. I'm going to start bringing down the threshold until I start engaging those transients. There we go. Alright, now let's open up the attack. Slow down that attack. Now, if you can't hear it, I think you probably can because I can. Doing this kind of brought out those ghost notes that we're playing. Now, opening up the attack, that allows the transients from hitting that snare to come through better. But I think I want to mellow them out, so I'm going to put a knee on this guy. I'm going to back off that compression too, the threshold. I'm liking that better. That's holding the compressor with the release time, but no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to keep that release really quick. And I think for now that's a good point. So let's start up. Let's just go ahead and increase the output gain. Let's go ahead and bring the cymbals back in, just see what it sounds like, the overheads. Alright, let's go ahead and turn those off. I'm going to go to the kick track now. Let's go ahead and back it up to the beginning of the song and just turn up the kick. Let's see what that sounds like. Alright, now this kick, it's muted on both the front and back head. The beater head has got some foam on it, and the resonance head has got some foam on it so that they're dampened. Also, the batter head has a beater pad that's pretty thick on it. It doesn't really allow for a lot of, high frequency attack. Like if we were doing a metal track or something where you want that click, this setup is not really good for it. Also, my mallets on the kick pedal are small foam padded mallets. Little more solid than that big puffy mallet that you get from a lot of the older kits, but it's not hard like a hard plastic or a hard wood. But I think it should be really pertinent, a good choice for this kind of song, this kind of track. We don't want to look on or focus on a lot of high-end frequency for the attack. What I really want to do with this kick is I just want to kind of remove some of the boxiness out of it and focus on the low end, and then any attack that I need to give it from there afterwards, I kind of just focus around somewhere between the 1 and 5K with a tight peaking curve. So at the moment, let's go ahead and bring down the low mids, see if we can get rid of the boxiness. Alright, so I widened the Q a bit, and I pulled the frequency down to 445, and I've cut about 8 dB out of it. Now I'm going to boost the low end, but on a tight Q. I'm not going to leave it that wide. I've set Q up as 5.6, and I'm boosting about 10 dB at the moment at 53 hertz. And I'm liking how that's sounding through the phones, but see if I can get a little more attack out of this for the initial mallet hit. Let's start at the 4K point. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there for now. I'm going to bring in the rest of the kit just to hear what it sounds like. Well, the snare and the overheads anyway. We're going to back the song back to the beginning and start over because, again, we're almost at the end. Alright, well, I should throw compression on it right now. Let's see. Again, I think I'm going to just start with a hard limiter. Let's open up that attack to allow the initial attack to come through more. I'm going to go back into EQ on the kick, and we're going to lower that low frequencies down. I'm going to set this up with a low pass filter as well. There's going to be frequencies there I don't really think I'm going to need on this kick. Let's go back in, turn it up a little bit. Okay, well, let's bring up the other instruments and just see what that's going to sound like so far. I still have to work on the toms, but right now I'm getting a good start with the snare, kick, and overheads, and I'm going to bring up the guitars and the bass right from the beginning. All right, so it's getting better. Nice start. I think I want to focus on the toms now. And the toms were submixed right from the get-go to 2 channels. So they're on 5 and 6 here. The toms I wanted to keep sounding fairly natural. With this track, I liked how they were sounding natural, but I still want them to have some girth on the bottom end. So I'm gonna find a spot in here where we're doing the kind of like dun, 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 and I want to hear those low ends coming through pretty powerful in that spot. So let's go ahead and take a look for that. Let's fast forward. Here we are. So I'm going to just hit repeat with this. There we go. Okay. So we're just going to focus on the low end. I'm going to tighten that Q up. All right, it's that boom, boom, boom that I really want to have stand out. So I'm going to just narrow down the focus to that point. Let's go ahead and put some compression on that. See if we can get more sustain out of that. Bring everything else, all the other drums back in and see what that's going to be like. Let's see. let's give it some high end on those toms. And then we also cut down the 1 kilohertz. So I'm going to go ahead and back this whole thing up. And we're just going to listen to the drum track for a bit. So you can hear the ring of the toms as I hit the kick every time. Now, if we wanted to put more work onto this, that could be taken out. We can take that out with a gate, or we can even take it out with an expander or a compander. But right now, I'm not going to mess with any of that right now. It's just going to be left completely open and natural like it is. We're going to hear how it sounds when everything starts coming together. Alright, well, let's hear the vocal track. So far, I'm liking everything else. I just want to hear the vocal track now. Alright, let's check it out. What is it? Track 10? It's track 10.
Always remain. Have you ever looked for God's eyes and asked Him for help? A nation remembers a pain so well. Who are you to tell me who's wrong or right?
So far, I'm liking the sound. I'm going to add some compression to it, but with this kind of song, with his vocal style, I'm not going to compress it that hard. I'm going to just give it a little bit of compression to allow him to still have the dynamics that he uses in his vocal performance. So first, just turn the compressor on, maybe say 4 to 1. I'm going to put a knee on this thing to make the transition smoother, and then just start compressing it to see how it's going to affect the vocal sound.
Close your eyes and sleep safe tonight. People die, people don't come home, yeah. Half a man, yeah, a woman stands alone, yeah. Captain John, 64 souls, yeah. Cost of the freedom that we know, no.
All right, and his vocals through this performance don't have a lot of low end in them, so maybe I can get rid of that frequency range for anything that might come up that we don't really need there, just by putting a high pass filter, high pass filter on this thing. Get that set up and just take a listen.
People die, people don't come home, yeah. Half a man, yeah, a woman stands alone, yeah.
So I was able to pull it up to about 250 hertz before I started hearing through my system a noticeable change in the vocal harmonics. So I'm gonna leave it there, and that's gonna allow me to eliminate anything that may be coming through from 250 hertz on down, and all that unwanted or unneeded information just won't be there to add up in the submix track, the master track channel. So it gives us a little more headroom. So with that there, let's go ahead and just plug everything back in and from the beginning and see what it's going to sound like again.
Everywhere I look, there's a flag wave. America, red, white, and blue.
All right, so listening with everything else together, I decided to pull down the low pass filter, or the high pass filter, I mean, to about 157 hertz, just to give his voice a little more low harmonics in there, because it just seemed to be a little narrow, a little shallower than I thought it was going to be once I added in the rest of the music. Now, for this section, he did a secondary vocal track. It's just a low kind of drone of the same performance. It's not even in key with his actual vocal melody. So the whole purpose I'm going to use this for is just to enhance the vocal section a bit in this chorus line without really making the low end or the lower octave vocal track that prominent. So I'm going to start off with just putting a hard limiter on this thing and squashing it.
You know it's the best. People die, people don't come home, yeah. Half a man, yeah. Woman stands alone, yeah. Captain John, 64 souls, yeah. Cost of the freedom that we know, no, no. Soldier from small town, people die, people don't come home, yeah. Half a man, yeah, woman stands alone, yeah. Captain John, 64 soul, cost of the freedom that we know, no, no. People
All right.
die.
Let's mess with EQ for this
don't
now.
Come home. Half a man, yeah, a woman stands alone. Captain John, 64 soul. Cost of the freedom that we know, no, no. People die, people don't come home, yeah. Half a man, yeah, woman stands alone, yeah. Captain John, 64 souls, yeah. Cost of the freedom that we know, no, no. People die, people don't come home, yeah. Half a man, yeah, woman stands alone, yeah. Captain John, 64 souls, yeah. Cost of the freedom that we know, no, no. People die, people don't come home, yeah. Half a man, yeah, woman stands alone, yeah. Captain John, 64 souls, yeah. Cost of the freedom that we know, no, no.
All right. Well, so far it's still getting better. But I don't know. In my opinion, there's just something that needs to be added to the drums and the vocals to help liven them up. So let's try gated reverb on the snare. Let's see what that does.
People die, people don't come home, yeah. Half a man, yeah, woman stands alone, yeah. Captain John, 64 souls, yeah. Cost of the freedom that we know, no, no. Soldier from small town, never be the same. Dangers in the shadows always remain. Have you ever looked for God's eyes and asked him for help? A nation remembers a pain so well. Who are you to tell me who's wrong or right? Close your eyes, sleep safe tonight. People die, people don't come home.
All right, now he's also got through this section a tambourine. Just on channel 9. Let's see if that's really there. Yes, it is. I'm just going to hard pan that thing left. And then we're just going to EQ out with a high pass filter all the low end crap. About right there, 749 hertz. Good enough, right? The whole trick will just be blend that in with the rest of the track. For the vocals, I think they need something as well. I'm going to put on a delay and reverb setup. We'll try a delay plus reverb. That means that this is going to be a delay and a reverb going in separately, kind of in parallel. See how that's going to turn out sounding. We'll just start it back up from the beginning of the track.
Everywhere I look, there's a flag waving. America, red, white, and blue. Like to know where the hell have you been? Started way before World War II. I don't care if you stand on the right or the left. We got our freedom, yeah, you know it's a bad. People die, people don't come home, yeah. Half a man, yeah. Woman stands alone, yeah. Captain John, 64 soldiers. Close to the freedom that we know, know. Soldier from a small town, never be the same.
All right, well, it's getting better. Definitely getting better. But it's got a nice balance to it right now. But it's still not quite there. We get everything balanced, and the next trick is, and the next step is to go ahead, at least in my opinion, and this is what I've been doing for 20 years, and everything you read online or whatever from classes and stuff says, oh, don't do this, but I do it anyway, and nobody's ever made one complaint about the way my stuff sounds. I've been getting reviews, good reviews in magazines, online community, and a number of things, and had a number of tracks played throughout terrestrial radio in the local region as well as online, and everybody is liking what comes out of my studio with how I mix and produce things. So I say screw the fucking book about how you're supposed to go about mixing and all this kind of stuff, and just do whatever sounds right, okay? So at this point, I feel I've got a nice balance with the mix on those tracks, but I still want to beef it up a little more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually do a little bit of mastering to this, pre-mastering to it. I'm going to go into the master channel now and add some more compression and EQ and just play around a bit until it sounds the way I want it to sound.
the shadows always remain. Have you ever looked for God's eyes and asked him for help? A nation remembers a pain so well. Who are you to tell me who's wrong or right? Close your eyes, sleep safe tonight. People die, people don't come home, yeah. Half a man, yeah, woman stands alone, yeah. Captain John, 64 soldiers, close to the freedom that we know, no. People die, people don't come home, yeah. Half a man, yeah, woman stands alone, yeah. Captain John, 64 soldiers, close to the freedom that we know, no, no. 64 souls, yeah. Come tomorrow, you see what I mean. 3 strikes didn't bring us to our knees. 64 souls, yeah, yeah.
All right, so now it's just going to be a matter of time of just messing with the individual levels again. And at this point, we're at a good place to go ahead and bring our client in or my client in and say, okay, have a listen. Tell me what you think. You like this? Is there any changes you want made? We've already got a sound for a direction for him to go with the kind of effects placed on to go. We've created his stereo guitar tracks. We've filled out his sound with the bass guitar. We've given him a good drum sound, if not a great drum sound. And we brought his vocals in to where they sound good. They stand out from everything else. And, there's one last thing. I want to do something with the vocals for the chorus line. I want to make them stand out a little more. So I double-tracked that vocal and offset it again, just like we do with the guitars, but I'm leaving them both channels dead mono. So when the actual channel comes in, or when the chorus comes in, that channel comes on to play along and just kind of helps give the vocals a little extra oomph, thickens them up a little bit, lets them sound a little bit better, stand out more, and just different from the rest of the track, rest of the song. So let's start off again from the beginning and just start playing with things. See what it sounds, what we can do with it.
Everywhere I look, there's a flag waving. America, red, white, and blue. Like to know where the hell have you been?
All right. Well, at this point, it's just a matter of continuing to play around with the levels. I like how everything's sounding. It's just basically level setting, just experimenting with stuff like that. Changing the settings a little bit, just the levels on the reverb, on the delay channel, and maybe just playing around with EQ a little bit here and there. But overall, this is sounding the way I want it to so far to present to my client. All right, so through the magic of television, well, in this case, I guess streaming video, I've actually been here for about 4 hours now, I guess, mixing this, getting it all set up the way I like it. But I think this is at a good point to where when the client comes in, we have a great start to say, hey, here's what we're presenting to you. Do you like what you hear? What kind of changes are you looking for? Do you like how the effects are? Do you want those changed? Anything like that. This is the jumping off point, and it's the point for him to actually hear his song mixed, for him to get an idea of what he's really sounding like, what he's going to sound like, and if he likes it or not. So anyway, I'm going to present that to you guys and just let you hear the whole song fully mixed as it is for that starting off point, and hopefully y'all enjoy it. I do. I certainly did. Anyway, this is Brian F. Studios. We'll see you guys later.